Welcome, everyone, back to the Vibrant Flow podcast. I am so excited to share another conversation with Juliet Tang with you. She's been on the podcast once before. I think it was quite a while back, actually, almost like not 2 years ago, but less than that, more than a year ago. And that episode has been one of your favorites of the podcast interviews so far. And I'm really excited to dive into deeper topics. We're going to talk about Eros, being a feminine woman, receptivity, even wealth, if Juliet is feeling like it. So, Juliet, thank you so much for being with me. Tell us, how are you feeling and what is active and alive in your sphere right now?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Johanna, for having me on here again. It's been such an honor. And yeah, it's been a while since about a year and a half ago that we were having a conversation. It's been really beautiful to just like witness how life has been unfolding for both of us. It's like so much has changed. And currently, what's really alive in me is just, oh my goodness. Well, in my personal life, I am getting ready for a big move to finally leave the Northeast of America and being able to go to the state of eternal sunshine, which is my lifelong dream to be
Oh,
in the lush jungle, just surrounded by the ocean and beautiful, beautiful, gigantic banana leaf trees, that's just like, yeah, that it's so, so, so tremendous for me.
mm,
And professionally, I've been diving a lot deeper actually into the feminine body and incorporating different aspects of the body, especially our women, which for me is the heart, the womb, the yoni lips, right? The feminine anatomy into the work that I'm doing. So I'm super, super excited to be on here. And yeah, just waiting to see how this conversation is going to flow for this
mm.
round.
Beautiful. So let's jump right in. I wanted to ask you about your one of your recent programs, a shorter program that I also participated in, and it was called Eros. And I want to talk about Eros specifically here because it is, or you've been using it as a sort of keyword to paint a picture, to lead women into an experience of life. But I feel like a lot of women, even if they do have an understanding, okay, Eros is a Greek word, it's a type of love, but very often the understanding of it is very limited and sometimes almost even triggering, as it has traditionally in some circles been referred to the carnal type of love exclusively. So why use the word eros? Why is it so descriptive? And what does it mean for a feminine woman?
Absolutely. So this is a really good question for us to start this journey. And Um, yeah, so the first thing I want to say to the listeners is that anything that we discuss, especially when it comes to feminine teachings, is just super multidimensional. It's never like a flat one-dimensional type of thing, right? There are just so many nuances in every single word and term and teaching that we share. So that's just because the feminine is like the multidimensional and volumetric portal, right? When it comes to her relationship with the masculine, who is the logos, the logic, the reasoning, the very like directional type of force. So yeah, eros is a Greek word, and the common understanding of it is romantic and sexual love between a man and a woman. However, the way that I'm feeling into the texture of the word is that it's really um and I'm just feeling the layers that are coming up right now to see how to even put that into words. The way that I see a woman is that we are intimate because our feminine core feminine essence is that we thrive in relationship. We relate to each other as a relationship. In our essence, we are deeply relational. We are deeply intimate. So Eros speaks to this intimate quality that we share with ourselves, with our bodies, with our womanhood, with each other. This is why for women, it's never about competition. It's actually always about collaboration and sisterhood. And there is this deep, intimate quality, of course, with the masculine, all aspects of the masculine, whether it's with men, with God, with masculine principles in our businesses, and also ultimately with life. We are intimate with life. So I'm going to apply some context to how I guide women into their Eros, because the focus of my work, even though there are so many different areas that we do dive into, the main focus is business and money coaching. So in terms of business, and I know you know this, we have all been operating in the paradigm of very linear, logical, pushy, disconnected, exhaustive, and also extractive, right? That's the paradigm that, I mean, if you just like tune into any type of talk from any motivational speaker on YouTube, you're going to hear things like just work hard, double down on whatever works, push yourself harder, sleep less, rest less, do whatever it takes. And while some of these things might not be bad things within the context, within the right context, and by the way, they're mostly for men and masculine because they do have different hormones and they're built to push their bodies because they're able to sustain like more stress in their bodies than women. So while some of these things are not necessarily bad, there is no feminine perspective in this. So when women are conditioned to operate like men in business, in money, in sales and marketing, automatically, and in relationship, automatically we are cut off from our juicy, ripe, intimate life flow, right? The life force, the feminine life force. And Eros, of course, includes sexual and romantic love, but it goes so beyond that. It's really a primary quality of that juicy, ripe intimacy, this beautiful fertileness that's not just co-creational, but we each embody that fertileness, that creational potency inside of us, especially in the pelvic bowl, right? In our womb and our yoni. So when we're cut off from that beautiful life force, that feminine life force, we are essentially operating as a man trapped in a woman's body. So my realization and also my walk in Eros, being that business and money, have been some of my biggest initiations, is to guide women into the paradigm, out of the paradigm of that hustle, force, extractive type of way to launch, to market, to sell, and into the paradigm where they are relearning what it's like to be in their feminine bodies. They are relearning how their feminine system operates, which a lot of the times when I ask my ladies to do a practice called yoni gazing, it's like the very first time that they're looking at their woman. And it's the very first time that they're even getting to know her, getting to know themselves. So it is that paradigm of what it's like for a woman to be in her primordial feminine life force and anchored in her beingness of being this soft, open, ripe, intimate being in relation to everything that is around her in her business. Like, how can we operate from this true essence that is really our feminine essence? And for me, this is how Eros has been working and manifesting in my work, and how it's been showing up and guiding women into really just like a rite of passage into their embodied womanhood.
Yeah. Yes to embodied womanhood. So you use the word lover a lot, and I love it. It's so beautiful. I feel the rightness of the lover archetype. How does that play into all of this? And also, I know that you've talked about the lover wound. What is that? and how can we step into a healthy, beautiful, juicy way of living in the lover or as the lover?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. What's coming up for me is right away. Ooh, there's a layer of this restored feminine essence is so attractive and appealing to men that they are willing to go to war for their beloved, for the lover quality that is in women that is not necessarily in men. Because when you think about even like, stories, legends, myths, like Helen of Troy, there is Guinevere, right? And like how King Arthur and Sir Lancelot were like really competing for the ladies' favor, probably not in the best way, but they were still competing for the ladies' favor. And it's not like historically, it's not just our beauty that is appealing to men. What they are truly fighting for, going to battle for, is that intimate beingness that they don't necessarily possess. They are looking to be inside of the depth of our heart, our womb, and our surrender. So the lover essence, the way that I see the lover essence is that it is one of the primary archetypes that we're born into. A woman is, at the same time, she is the daughter. Because our first man is daddy, right? Um, in that relationship, as she grows up from the daughter to an adult woman, the dad then gives her hand to the second most important man in her life, a man that she's going to spend the rest of her life with. And that is her partner. That is her husband. That is her lover. So when you think about it, we are actually born to be daughters, lovers, and there's also the mother archetype that even if someone is not biologically a mom, we still carry that fertileness inside of us to be birthing, to be nourishing to ourselves, to our families, our loved ones. The lover quality is the quality that men are fighting for, that men will do anything to be able to receive that quality from a woman. And in today's world, because we live in such a depolarized world, um, because of all of the conditioning and all of the agendas, women have been conditioned to associate being a lover as a weakness. That's something I know because I used to be a woman who was ashamed to even say that I am a woman. And I did everything within my power to invest in high level male gurus, motivational speakers, business coaches who could teach me how to be a man, how to be like a man, how to compete with a man, right? How to just be showing up in a way that is disciplined, loud, leading. But I would need to, in order to do that, which I did for several years, I completely cut off that life, that feminine life force inside of me. I had to be cut off from the lover quality, from the softness, from the being the open vessel. And I remember it was just so exhausting, not to mention like physically, it started to manifest as like health issues because I was not in touch with my womanhood and like and it was like also manifesting as issues in my relationship. So for a lot of women, because of the way that we are brought up, because of the conditioning associating our femininity with weakness, with being like second best, with like, oh, you're no good. Being a woman, you need to be out there, competing with the men. And because of a lot of that ancestral lineage stuff from our mothers, our grandmothers, women who probably experienced hurt from men. We live in the world in a way that is heavily armored. We put all of these walls and chains around ourselves. We armor up our heart, which actually also armors up our womb, our yoni lips, and we are disconnected from just being the feminine essence that we're born to be. So that I feel is the lover wound. There's also a deeper layer of the lover wound, which is actually, for me at least, that is being disconnected from God. And I know both of us share the same beliefs in terms of we see God as the Father and also Christ, who is the Son, who is essentially the bridegroom to humanity. He is the logos in which all things have come from. So him being the primordial masculine and us being the primordial feminine, the Eros, if we're cut off from God, if we're cut off from being able to relate to God as his feminine, as his daughter and beloved, if we're cut off from being able to receive love, protection, and provision from him as Father, Warrior, King, Beloved, then automatically we are not evoked in that lover quality because we don't even know what it's like to be held by the highest masculine, not just as a daughter, but also as a bride, as a lover. So for me, when I went through this journey of restoration, it really came in many different deep layers. Some of the layers I didn't even know. I thought I was healing my relationship with Paul, right? But at the end of the day, God actually took me back to him first and said, you need to heal this layer of lover wound with me to be my bride first, to know what it's like to abide in me and to come to me as my feminine, as my beloved. And when that started happening, I automatically started feeling more restful in my feminine beingness. I was able to relax more. And because I learned what it's like to be held by God, and to be able to relax in him, I started being able to surrender more to my man without like wanting to control him, tell him what to do. In a way, I really see serving for us to kind of like surrender to our men, surrender to him as the lover, comes from our surrendering to God first. And simultaneously, we also get to serve God through surrendering to our men as the lover.
So beautiful. If someone is now thinking, oh gosh, yes, I want to experience being the lover, being loved and the lover, I want to experience this quality of Eros. Where do I start? Like what are some tangible tips around a very intangible concept that a woman can sort of start thinking about if she is wondering?
Yeah, there are so many practices that are coming to my mind right now. So, specifically when I work with clients, I offer them more specific and tailored practices for exactly where they are and what they need. But as we're having this conversation, I'm just like several more general practices that are coming up for me. The first one is what I've noticed is that a lot of women who are receiving the invitation to restore the inner lover and intimate quality within is that they're actually very disconnected from their own bodies, meaning they spend most of their lives operating in the head, in the mind, intellectualizing, making decisions, leading. It's mostly happening here, but not so much in the body. So usually the first thing that I do with my ladies is to give them some very basic practices of starting to orient to their inner landscape. And a very tangible practice that I have them do is literally to set their timer for like maybe 5-6 times a day to go off, for an alarm to go off. And then for them to stop whatever it is that they're doing at the moment and to check in to see where they are. Usually they're like, oh, I'm stressing about something. I'm stressing about a lunch. I'm thinking about something someone said to me yesterday, right? We're usually like here telling stories. So this alarm, this reminder is for us to just like, okay, I'm going to drop this and I'm going to consciously orient to what is happening to me right now? Can I feel the sensations that are in me right now without needing to control what is happening, without needing to tell stories like, oh, I don't feel good. It really sucks. It's too gray outside, right? But just like orient to, okay, what is happening inside of me right now? What is the texture of my inner landscape? What are some sensations that I'm feeling? Can I describe them in very descriptive words, the sensations and feelings? So, oh, maybe I'm feeling a little hollow in my stomach right now. There's like this ball of anxiety, or I feel pretty like there's like a lot of movement of energy inside of me. There's this aliveness, and I feel like pretty turned on right now. Like what is the texture and quality of what is happening? And then to see if we can attune a little bit more deeply to our inner senses and just stay with the felt senses for a while without getting, without like attaching stories to that, and just notice what's happening. A lot of times it's like, why should I even be doing this? I'm so impatient. Let me just move on. And sometimes we notice ourselves popping out of the body, in which case, gently pull ourselves in. And I usually end this practice with orienting to feeling into what is supporting my body right now. So I'm sitting on a chair. Can I feel a little bit more deeply into the skin that is touching the fabric that is outside of my thighs right now? And can I feel a little bit more deeply into the support that is currently supporting my entire, my hip structure, right? What does feeling supported by my chair feel like? Can I describe it? Can I describe the quality, the texture of that? And the practice is, can I stay oriented within while orienting myself to whatever is happening outside of me? And can I stay connected to my inner world and outer world at the same time? That's usually the first practice that I start my clients off on, just because being a lover is a woman who is, I would say, like our original feminine design, being the cherished and claimed feminine that is resting in the masculine, is a woman who is in her design of being in her body. Because women are not like men in terms of we are all about mindset and doing. Women are creatures of being. We are body, heart, felt sense, womb based creatures. So for us to be operating like men, that's already an inversion. And this is not to say the mind is bad, or there's never going to be at times that we're operating from the mind, but we are actually very much designed by God to be in the body, to be relating and receiving from the heart and the womb. So the first thing for ladies who are feeling like they are in the lover wound, who are disconnected from their bodies, is to start to attune to what it's like to be in the body and see how long they can stay in the body without forcing, but just to get very curious of, oh, these are the times that I want to pop out of my body, or I'm feeling impatient, or like this doesn't feel good to me. Even the story, this doesn't feel good, this doesn't feel safe. Can we just create a little bit more spaciousness to sit with that story? Can we mobilize between all of these parts of us? Some parts that are like, I like this. Some parts that are, I don't want to be doing this. I want to be working on emails right now, right? Can we just sit with those parts of us and the sensations within us and just relearn what it's like to experience the moment to moment experience of life and moment to moment penetration of life, the intensity of feeling, and all of these things happen in the body. Lately, I have a few clients asking me, like, oh, can we work on receiving deeper masculine penetration? I'm like, yes, of course. Everything that we are doing is supporting you to increase your capacity to receive the moment to moment penetration from life. because to us, life is the masculine and we are the feminine, So allowing ourselves to increase our capacity to feel, to be in the body, to notice what is happening in the body, to be able to access different feeling states, and to even learn to receive from the body and into the body. All of these things are practices for us to remember. This is not something new. So I'm going to use the word remember the lover quality for the feminine. It's just encoded in our DNA. It's not something that you need to relearn because you already know this, but your body do need to remember what it's like to be in here, in the heart, in the womb, and to even experience that level of intimacy with yourself first before you can experience it with a man, with money, and with God.
Exactly. And you touched on receptivity already there because it's so intimately tied to what we're talking about here. So my next question was, how do we make it easy for him, for the masculine in all its forms, to give and provide? How do we make it easy?
Yeah. Mm. So I'm feeling into this and I'm wondering if, because it's going to be a little bit different with a man versus with money and business strategies. So I'm just feeling like which one feels more alive right now. Um, well, I'm just going to go with the flow then. What's coming up first for me is that it is nearly impossible for a woman to receive when she's living in the mind. And this is not, I'm never wanting to come from the place of demonizing being in the mind. It's just that because it's not our original design, our vessel-like essence is for us to receive into our body, receive into our hearts and wombs. So the first thing is to learn to remember what it's like to be in the body and let the body actually guide the mind over time, how she wants to respond to something. So when I'm feeling into, and I'm just going to share from my own journey of what I needed to do to make it easier for Paul to give, because I didn't even know this, but it wasn't until after I started doing all this work that I realized I was really making it very, very, very difficult for him to give. For all of the years that that we've been together in this very deep union and we love each other dearly. But because I was unaware of certain energetic fractures and wounds that I was holding, I remember the first thing was that I have had a very competitive nature. So instead of allowing him to give, I actually was unconsciously coming from the space of competition. Even in the very beginning when we were dating, I felt hugely uncomfortable for him to pay for the dates. And the stories that came up because I associated being a feminine woman means being weak, being second best. I insisted on paying, which thank God he rejected, but I just wanted to pay. And whenever he paid for our dates, which was every single time, because he put his foot down, even back then, I felt all sorts of discomfort in my body. And if I remember correctly, my body at the time was so uncomfortable with receiving his chivalry and generosity that I was actually shutting down. And the sensations to me at the time were, I felt shame. Like, oh, I make money too. Why is it that he's paying and I'm not paying? Is he thinking like maybe I'm like a gold digger or like I'm like, like I'm after his money? Like all of these ridiculous stories will come up. So the sensations in my body were, I felt like I needed to armor up. I needed to prove to him that I was equally powerful and capable of making money. I also felt like almost like in my stomach, there was this tightness in my stomach. Like, maybe he's going to expect something now that he's paying, even though he was the most generous and just chivalrous gentleman, right? They were all of my stories that came out from me feeling resistance to receiving. And that's just one out of the millions of stories that I could provide here. But really, like, what's underneath that story is that our bodies actually will tell us what our comfort level with receiving is and how much she is ready to receive. Because when a man is providing for you, and if you haven't done a lot of the work, and let's say you've come from a lineage of women who were more or less competing with their men, or like not feeling comfortable with being energetically penetrated by men, there's going to be all sorts of stuff coming up in the body and in the mind. There's going to be a lot of discomfort, tightness, maybe even like the quality of shame, the quality of judgment, right? So start to notice every single time when a man wants to give, like what comes up in the body. What comes up in the body is really like, it provides the cues as to what our current feminine capacity is in terms of receiving without collapsing, receiving without shutting down, receiving without resistance. Because if we're not aware of it, and I know from my old patterns, I would try to receive something. And the next moment, I would actually either collapse or I would shut down. I would be so uncomfortable that several times I would be like, okay, but next meal is on me and you need to promise me that I have to pay, which he never did, but, or like, let me go get something for you. Let me buy you a gift. Like, I would overcompensate for the discomfort of receiving by doing something. And the moment you start to notice all of these things, just if I were coaching the previous version of me, I would say like, oh, Juliet, I would so love for you to just sit with what is coming up in your body. Sit with your stories. And I want you to tune into those parts of you that don't feel safe to receive, that need to reject what you're being given to right now, and just sit with them. And then I would take them through some processes to actually for them to develop a healthy relationship with those parts that don't feel safe to receive. Because at the end of the day, those parts of us are not bad. They are just parts of us that have been programmed and conditioned to associate receiving with, I'm not good enough. There is shame in this. I need to resist. I'm an equal with men. And those parts of us are so desperately needing loving, tender care from us. And once we can establish a healthy relationship with those parts of us that don't feel safe to receive, as a multidimensional volumetric feminine being, there are also parts of us at all times. Even a woman who feels most resistance with receiving, there are parts of her that are ready to receive, which is even why she's asking this question, which is even why she is able to feel the bigness of her desires, right? She's able to feel like, oh, I'm uncomfortable with this. I'm a boss babe. But at the same time, there's a part of me that just feels so good at the possibility of like dating a provider man, surrendering my control to the leadership of a man, something that I can't even mentally comprehend. But there's a part of me that feels turned on by this desire. There's a part of me that feels turned on by just being in my feminine essence, relaxing and receiving bigger amounts of money without needing to double the time and the work that I put in. Even for every single woman, because we're such complex human beings, there are always going to be parts that don't feel safe with receiving, and there are always parts that are ready to receive. And it's never about canceling the parts of us that are not ready to receive, but it is about attuning to all parts of us, building an intimate relationship with all parts of us while allowing ourselves to actually choose from the parts of us that are anchored in the safety and spaciousness and desire to receive. And the more it is that we can choose, like intentionally choose and take action and receive from those parts, whether it's with a man or our business or money, the easier it is that we can make it for the masculine to give in a way that's, that is just like he is offering his life-giving quality, and we are receiving that into our beingness.
Yes. And piggybacking off of that, you already went into the direction of money here. I wanted to ask you, how does a woman with a lot of apparent scarcity in her life circumstances allow more life and money? You say that money is more life, right? More life and money to flow.
Yeah. Okay. Such a multidimensional question here. The first layer that's coming to me is actually, this is like the root to everything we're discussing here. I honestly wasn't able to fully shift into a receiving paradigm until I started to heal the layers of wounds with God. Just because relating to God as Father, as the Father, as the highest King, as the beloved, is one of the best practices to calm the feminine nervous system. Money has a ton to do with our nervous system capacity. So a lot of us don't know this until we actually start to go into this realm, is that a lot of women, especially I'm going to say as a former boss babe, especially as a high achieving woman who is like type A, who is kind of like operating from that extractive pushy paradigm all her life, whether she is a career woman or a woman in business. What we don't know is that our nervous system, we're mostly operating outside of our window of tolerance. So what that looks like is that instead of operating from like that safety and spaciousness and ease inside of us, we're chronically in the states of like hyper or hypo, right? The fight or flight response. And on the surface, we can be very, very high functioning and high performing. So whatever fruit that has yielded in our life, it's not necessarily an accurate indication as to whether we are chronically dysregulated in our nervous system. Because I personally know a lot of women who are in that chronic fight, flight, freeze type of pattern, but they are highly successful. They know how to push at the expense of their health and marriage to make money. So what happens is that if we don't come back to the body and to the nervous system capacity, we're not going to have the awareness as to from which state of beingness am I creating the money from? From which state of beingness am I creating the success from? And so when I'm looking at when I'm working with a woman, and let's say if she's constantly in that fight or flight or freeze response, right? The things that I usually hear are, I need to work really hard for the money to come in. I have to push really hard. I'm always feeling restless. I feel like I can never relax. I feel like I'm always on. I need to be in that go, go, go mode. Or I feel like I'm just getting clarity one moment and then I'm losing clarity the next moment. Or I feel really guilty relaxing, right? And all of these things and more are usually symptoms that we do not have a healthy relationship with money, because we do not have a healthy relationship with receiving, because we do not have a healthy relationship with our body and our nervous system. We're most likely operating from a lack of awareness as to what our original feminine design is, how we are designed to run a business, how we are designed to work in a corporate job, and how we're designed to receive money and love. So I would say, like, getting deeper into all of these things and learning who you are as a woman and how you are designed to receive, all of these are like necessary teachings for women who are in the relationship of scarcity with money. Just because if we don't know these things, then we're not going to be able to even tap into our receptive nature, right? So that's the first thing. In terms of the relationship with God, which is the layer that I first came up with, it's money is a masculine principle. So when I'm looking at things like money, success, clarity, for women in business, obviously there are strategies, structures. All of these are masculine principles. So at the end of the day, it's not even so much like you have to heal your relationship with money, because money doesn't represent money. Money here represents it is more life. It is more of that masculine life-giving quality that we may or may not feel comfortable with receiving. But at the end of the day, money also falls under the primordial masculine, right? So instead of just like going into each one of them, can I heal my relationship with money? Can I heal my relationship with structure? Can I heal my relationship with strategies? The first thing that I usually do is to support women to restore their relationship with God, with the Father, warrior, king, beloved aspects of God. Because once we relearn, once our nervous system relearns what it's like to be held in a living relationship, in a living communion with the highest masculine who has already chosen you, claimed you, and is cherishing you every step of the way, that is tremendous. That is a tremendous resource for the feminine nervous system to calm down, to feel rooted, to even say, like, today I'm having a bad day, but God, I feel like I am anchored in God. I feel like I'm held by Christ, by my beloved. He's never here to leave me. So that is a very deep layer of healing when it comes to healing anything with the masculine, whether it's with a man or with money. That alone is going to start to initiate an entire process of, just from what I have witnessed, from witnessing women going through this journey, whether it's on their own or in collaboration with me. The more a woman is able to lean into her feminine identity in the highest masculine in God, the more it is that she's actually called to live more from her body, to be more in her heart, to be more in her womb, to open up more to any kind of masculine energetic penetration, just because it is impossible for women to engage in an intimate, loving relationship without her simultaneously remembering what it's like to surrender to him. We are built to surrender to him. We are built to be penetrated by the masculine love, penetration and provision, right? Protection and provision. So that is usually like the first, like that's the groundwork that we need to lay in terms of just restoring our relationship with money. And then what I usually do is that I look at individually where she is with her body. What is her relationship with her body, with her heart, with her womb, with her yoni, with the parts of her that feel scarcity or resistance with money, and with the parts of her that hold the desire of wanting to make more money. And it's similar to what we shared in the last, a few minutes ago. There are always parts of us that are ready, willing, and able to receive more, whether it's a man's love or money. The issue with a lot of women is that because of the lack of awareness, we're constantly choosing from the parts of us that feel the scarcity versus leaning into the edge of those parts of us that can hold the bigness of our desires, leaning into the edge of allowing ourselves to receive. And a tangible example that I'm going to offer. This is something that's happened several times with several clients, and recently, one of my clients just went through this. She was we've spent a few months working on having her attune more deeply to her body and to the parts of us, to the parts of her that feel safer, that actually can feel the pleasure of receiving more money. And it was a very gradual shift. But I remember at one point, she left me a Voxer message and shared with me, like, oh my God, like I finally surrendered and I'm finally allowing myself to just like experience pleasure in life instead of always being in the go, go, go mode. Instead of feeling ashamed or judgmental of myself, of wanting to go shopping, of wanting to buy some things for myself and to get my nails done. Like this, for a lot of women, because we are in that scarcity type of, in the parts of us that feel the scarcity, we can get really frugal with allowing ourselves to receive the pleasure of self-giving. And I was like, well, lady, if you don't even want to give to yourself, why would you expect your clients to want to invest in working with you? Why would you expect the masculine money and success and all of these things to come in and court you if you're not even courting yourself? So with her and with several clients actually at the same time, their practice was to list a list of things that allow them to lean into their pleasure edge and receiving edge. Like, what is something that I am really wanting to give to myself right now that I've been super stingy and frugal over? And then to just go ahead and do that and to consciously, intentionally immerse in the pleasure or the eros of what it's like to be given to be provided for, even if you need to give to yourself first. And that is a very powerful calibration practice to increase our capacity to lean into the edge of pleasure and the edge of receiving without shutting down, without resisting, without telling stories, without getting dragged into those parts of us that are like, well, Juliet, maybe money is not coming in this month and you need to be extra stingy to yourself and you really should not be doing X, Y, and Z. And I'm not talking about gluttony. I'm not talking about going out, maxing out your credit card. But from what I know, the ladies who are more in that scarcity and resistance with money are extra frugal with themselves because they feel like they need to be so stingy that they will not allow themselves to receive anything from themselves. So usually this is one of the many powerful pleasure practices that I call it, to calibrate our capacity to receive more. And I know I threw a ton at you. It's just like there's so many layers to this type of work. They all fall under one umbrella, but there are like several different areas that I usually focus on.
I love that. I know that there are so many layers to this, and I appreciate you going into all of them. And I particularly feel like that piece about self-giving is going to resonate with a lot of women because, like, obviously, like you said, we're not talking about going beyond your means and being stupid with money, but rather the other end of the spectrum where you're seeing everything through the lens of scarcity. And I feel like women, myself included, I've experienced this. We hold ourselves in that scarcity because we are waiting for someone else to come in and break that pattern. And we are holding it off for ourselves. Like, we are not giving anything to ourselves, but we're waiting for someone else to be the one to give. And even then, it would be difficult. Like you said, there's that resistance that comes up. And so that's why I love that you went into that. It's an important point to talk about. And something that I don't feel like is talked about enough in terms of all of these topics that we've been discussing, because it's all
Yeah.
about, like, when we talk about the feminine, the masculine, and we talk about masculine provision, like that is the hot topic, right? And
Yes.
I talk about it too. So how does that, like, if you could just like really clarify, crystallize that point, why is self-giving related to masculine provision, or is it related to it? How
Yeah.
do they dance together?
Oh, yeah. I love, love, love this question. So much depth in there. So the first thing that I want to say that's very obvious is that not every single lady who is listening to this is in a covenant with a man yet, right? Because let's face it, there are women right now who need to work, whether it's at a career or in a business, in order to put food on the table and support themselves.
Mm.
So the interesting thing with masculine provision, which is simultaneously masculine energetic penetration. And when we're thinking about masculine, I feel like the surface level can very much be, oh, I need to find a husband who can provide for me, and I want to be the loving homemaker, right? And that's one layer of that. It's just like not everyone is in the space right now. When we are attuning to masculine provision, aka masculine energetic penetration, money is masculine. So when a woman is allowing herself to be penetrated by the pleasure, the life-giving quality of money, whether it's the money that has come into her bank account or someone else's bank account or her husband's bank account, she is receiving from the masculine regardless, right? The money as the life-giving masculine is providing for her while she's allowing penetration and pleasure of receiving from that masculine penetration. And at the same time, and this is interesting that this is something all of my clients are working through right now, we tend to look at masculine provision as something that is happening outside of us versus it's actually happening within ourselves first. This is why in everything we say, it's as within, so without. If I am not comfortable with being penetrated by my own desires, and I'm not, again, I want to be very careful. Desire is a very nuanced topic. That's like on its own an entire podcast because a desire can be our heart's true yearning, or it can be the shadow of a desire, which is entitlement, which is I'm going to go out and be irresponsible and max out all of my credit card, right? I am talking about a true yearning of a desire. Like years ago, I had a client who was going through a dry spell. And I asked her, what do you most desire right now? And she said, I just want to travel. And then a week later, she started traveling. She got on a plane. And then just like a short while later, she was like, oh my God, I got 2 clients paid in full, right? What happened was that she was holding so tight because she was resisting the penetration of her own desire because money was not coming in for that season. And it creates a vicious cycle because the more it is that money is not coming in, the tighter we hold, the more we want to be frugal, the less we are penetrable by the masculine, by our own desires, by the sensations of pleasure, by the sensations of receiving, right? Because we just start to get tighter and tighter and tighter. Instead of knowing that as a vessel, it doesn't matter what we are allowing to penetrate us. As long as we are rooted in that openness and softness, maybe it's money, maybe it is a provider man, maybe it's our own desire, maybe it's ideas from God, right? These masculine principles that are penetrating us cannot differentiate among themselves like, oh, she's spending money on her own versus a man is courting her and giving her roses. We are either open for penetration or we are closed for penetration. And for the ladies who are in the space of not yet having being in courtship or being in marriage, you are your primary responsibility in terms of allowing yourself to be penetrated by what is your true heart's desire and being in approval of that desire and allowing yourself then to be penetrated by the receivership of that desire. In which case, then that money that you're spending on yourself for traveling, for getting your nails done, for buying, I don't know, a dress that you've been eyeing for a while, is the masculine provision that is coming in to penetrate you because you're allowing yourself to be penetrated by him. And also going back to God, at the end of the day, I don't see that money, like money doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to you. It comes to me as a form of provision from God. So if I'm using this money to treat myself to something or to pamper myself with something, that money ultimately is a form of masculine provision coming from Papa, coming from Abba, coming from my beloved. So it doesn't matter if it's from me or my husband is spending that money on me. At the end of the day, I allow myself to fully experience what it feels like to receive that in my body, the pleasure, the ease, the safety, the spaciousness of the masculine depositing his seeds in my feminine field. So this is just for the ladies who are like, oh, I don't have a man. I don't know how this is going to happen. Well, this is how we can do this work. And ironically, this work will open you up way more to receive the right man and to receive the opportunities that will allow more money to come in. Because again, they don't know who you're opening for and what you're opening to. They just know, they see you as this open, softened, magnetic feminine, and they just want to come in and deposit in you, right? So like do this work within yourself first, and then just be open to the possibilities and opportunities.
Yeah. So good. So good. And lastly, to end on a high note, I would love to ask, because I've seen you write about this in your posts, the question of why does God want us to be wealthy? I think that topic, I know that that topic can be a dividing topic for some women who are still grappling with either an idea that God wants us to be poor, that that's holy, or that it is holier to have less. These are all ideas that I've implicitly, if not explicitly said, then I've really felt implicitly in my sphere growing up, in my group of people of faith, my community. And I know that a lot of women have experienced the same.
Yeah.
So when people are also talking about like, gosh, like, prosperity gospel, that's, there are so many issues with that. So how do we relate to this? Why does God want us to be wealthy? Why is that a good thing? Why it doesn't have anything to do with prosperity gospel, but all to do with creation itself?
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay. You just like gave me this huge question. Okay. So first of all, I've heard of the prosperity gospel. I've never read it. I mean, it just feels super misaligned to me on so many levels. So I've never read it. So the first thing is that women, women of God, right believers, women of faith, because of the tremendous web of religious trauma, created by the church institution, the church empire in our world, a lot of the concepts that we have of God and his will are laced with religious trauma, with church hurt. And a lot of that was actually very deliberately engineered to oppress humanity. That's not something I'm going to get into because, oh my goodness, it's going to be a 3-day workshop,
Yeah,
but I'm
that is
just going to leave it.
different
Yeah, I'm just going to
podcast.
leave it at that, that there are a lot of misinterpretations and projections of the word of God, of scripture, right? So having said that, I recently wrote a post on Instagram of like why God wants you to be wealthy. And for me, I'm a very polarizing woman. So I like to go into those places where like people are like, oh, I'm not sure I want to go there. I'm like, I'm going there. So first I'm gonna say I've been in and out of Miami because we are moving there. So we're just like setting up our lives there. When I was there in June with Paul, I was so amazed by the most beautiful mango trees all over. They were free. They were just growing on the side of the road. We're talking about gigantic canopies of trees with hundreds of mangoes on them. Free. You can just go there. A lot of them are falling on the floor. They're still intact. You just go there, you just eat. And we went nuts after these mangoes. And I had this moment of like clarity. Wow, like just like eating the beautiful, juicy mangoes. I was like, nature is so abundant. There is so much wealth in nature, and nature doesn't struggle. And then I started remembering years ago, I worked with this wealth mentor. He was all about human beings are part of nature, which, according to scripture, especially the Hebraic roots of Christ, um, the Old Testament is all about nature actually has the forefront of attention, right? It started with nature, and human beings are just part of nature. This is why we were created last. After God created nature, created the land, animals, and water, we are part of nature. And according to the ancient Hebrew roots of the Bible, nature and human beings lived in coexisted in harmony, right? We just like co-created together. And this is the perspective that I also come from. So I was eating the juicy mangoes and I started to remember my mentor, my wealth mentor from years ago, who was like, okay, nature is very abundant and nature doesn't struggle. You never look at a seed or a flower or a tree going, today I'm in a bad mood, so I'm not going to grow. Or like, I wonder what my next growth stage is. Like, how do I even flower and grow a fruit? It doesn't do that because it is encoded in the seed's DNA every single stage of the growth. Nature is always striving for more life. And this was so evident to me while we were in Miami when I saw the abundant sunlight, the rain, the fertile soil, and the tree leaves were gigantic and lush. And it was effortless. Wherever the nutrient is, wherever the penetration of the sun is where the tree is striving to grow into more life. Human beings, on the other hand, have been mentally conditioned by so many different agendas, institutions, all kinds of programming to create the false concept of scarcity, which doesn't live in nature. The trees out there don't know scarcity. I've seen trees growing out of rocks. I mean, like wherever there is life, that life is always seeking more life. So that was the start of that inspiration when I started writing that post. And then I started realizing, I was like, oh my goodness, the same creational potency that is alive in the mango, in the tree, in the flower, in the lush banana leaves runs in our veins because we're part of nature, because we were all created by the same God. And to me, wealth and abundance, money is one form of wealth, but wealth is not money. Wealth is nature striving for more life. It is nature wanting to become more lush, more abundant, that seed growing into a giant tree and forming this canopy and flowering and providing fruit for anyone who wants to eat. That is it. Wealth is more life. He is the way, the truth, and the life. The masculine is the life. So when a woman is resisting more life, when she's resisting the masculine, when she's resisting the way, when she's resisting God, she is simultaneously closing herself off to the form of wealth, the form of life that is called money. So vice versa, when we start to deepen into our organic godly design as a being of nature, as a being who is always seeking more life, this is not like an abundance code. Like I wrote that word, but it was more like as a joke, the original abundance code. This is not a code that we need to buy a course on. We need to crack. We need to seek after. Our DNA, our entire being, the fabric of our being is encoded with wealth. Whether we actually choose from this space and whether we allow ourselves to receive that is a very, very different story, because God did create human beings with agency. He created human beings even to the point that this type of agency that we're talking about is, even if you want to deny me, deny my heart, deny my love, I will give it to you. You have the freedom to deny who I am and the gifts that I have offered to you in this life. So we have the free will to choose whether we are allowing ourselves to feel that encoded wisdom of wealth and to receive into this space, or to say, well, you know what, I'm going to go with the mental programming of scarcity and limitation, and I'm going to keep choosing from those parts of me that are feeling the resistance to more life. Yeah, so that was like, I actually wrote an entire post of that on Instagram, and it was probably one of the more polarizing posts that I have written, because it can be very triggering to any kind of perception of God that is laced with religious trauma, right? The whole, like, you got to carry your cross, money is the root of all evils, which are all biblical. Like, all of these things are taken out of the Bible without giving the proper context. And that's really the reason why there is this polarization of, like, following God means you need to live in impoverishment, versus prosperity, Bible, whatever, probably like misusing the Bible in some way. I'm not sure. But yeah, both are actually extremes. And they're honestly both invitations for us to just come back to our original design, come back to that integrational point and say, I am here to follow the way. I am here to follow. Masculine is life, and he is life-giving, and we're here to receive more of him.
So good. Thank you for going into that. I know that there's so many layers to each of my questions. I'm quite aware of that, but also knowing that you have so much in depth and so much to give. So I just wanted to pack this episode with as much goodness and ripeness, juicy, just love. It's life. Like, even I've been thinking about this when you talk about life, like more life, and the blessing of even having a podcast and creating more life for women, for having you on, having these beautiful other guests on. That's also another form of more life, more abundance.
Yes,
And I think it's so
absolutely.
beautiful.
Yeah, and it's also life-giving. Our services help other people to seek more life. This is the beautiful part of it. Your podcast is life-giving.
Oh, thank you. That is the intention and the prayer behind it.
Yeah,
That is
and
the
it's deeply
case.
felt.
Before you go, please let us know where we can find you. If there's something current that you'd like to share from your services. This podcast episode, just saying for you, I'm going to edit this out, is probably going to come out a bit later because I've taken a small break from season 2 and starting season 3, but I'm now tuning into when is the time, because I'm going through these waves of nausea every day.
Yeah.
So But in any case, where we can find you online and where people can come say hi. I love the episode. Thank you
Absolutely.
for your words.
Absolutely. So I'm active on both Instagram and Facebook. My Instagram handle is Juliet two underscores Tang. You can always find me there. My team is a lot of times they're managing, but they always let me know when someone reaches out in DM. I am also on Facebook, and I have a Facebook group of some really lovely ladies in there. I also do like a lot of live trainings in my Facebook group, which is called Love Affair of the King. And yeah, currently I'm also in a spaciousness season where I'm just getting ready for the move from Miami and starting my new life. So I'm currently not offering a lot of the things, but keep checking in and just say hi on social media. And I'm certain like whenever something, I'm already feeling into the inspiration of the next program, but it's still like just the seed that I haven't gone through my full term pregnancy yet. So yeah, so when that happens, as soon as I know when I'm birthing, I will definitely keep all the ladies notified.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Johanna. It was such a beautiful and deep interview. I love the questions that you asked. So good.